Hey there, everyone. It's meteorologist Caitlin McGrath here with a forecast update on the winter storm that we are tracking for this weekend. So what we're going to do is go through the latest model guidance, talk about what our current thinking is for this storm, and you can post any questions you have in the comments. And at the end, we will go through some of them and answer as many as I can. But I will say this, we have not released a snowfall map quite yet. So if you have questions about how much snow you can expect in your backyard, check back in tomorrow. We'll be talking a lot more about specifics as we get a better idea of where this storm is heading, because like we've been saying for the past several days, this storm hasn't even formed yet. It's not going to until the weekend. So until it really forms, we're not going to have a 100% certain idea of where it's going to track, but we are getting a better idea of what the trend is looking like. So I'm going to first take you through the European model hour by hour and show you what we're thinking, because the European model and the American model are actually in pretty good agreement. Kind of rare that they're this on track, but both models right now have the storm moving right over DC. So let's talk about what that means. Now, most of the day on Sunday, still just fine. It's a cloudy start to the day. It's not until the afternoon, say after 1, 2 o'clock, that we start to bring this snow in across most of the area. If you're in our far eastern counties or out by the beaches, I do think you're warm enough that you start off as just rain, maybe some freezing rain or sleet, but a lot of the DMV starts off as snow starting around 1, 2 o'clock on Sunday. I stopped it here around 5 p.m. because that's when we start to see this heavier burst of snow, and this snow is going to accumulate pretty readily. Temperatures will be in the 20s on Saturday. We have a really cold air mass in place, so the snow that falls will accumulate, and it is looking like that heavy, wet snow. So keep that in mind. Rest your backs now. This storm is going to be a difficult one to clean up. And then as we head through the later evening hours, this is 10 p.m., notice for areas north and west of DC, the snow is coming down at a really good clip. That's where we have the potential with the current track to see some significant snowfall accumulation in far western Maryland, western Virginia, over towards West Virginia and the mountains. But notice DC and the surrounding counties, even to the north and west, we start to mix it over to some sleet and rain, heavy rain at times. So the farther south and east you are of DC, right now it looks like any snow that falls will get washed away by heavy rain. Elsewhere, we start to introduce this sleet, this ice, and that is just going to make for a slushy mess come later Sunday evening. So again, this is right around 10 o'clock. You can see the center of the storm getting a little bit closer to DC. So we'll stop the clock around 6 a.m. The center of the storm starting to work just to the north of DC. And the American model is pretty similar to this. The only real change is that as the storm pulls away, it's a little bit later on the American model, and it flips us back over to snow. Now, I don't think it's out of the question that we'll see a few flakes flying around early Monday morning, especially in our north and western counties. But I think for the most part, we end as some light rain early on Monday, and then this storm is out of here. So the worst of the weather is while you're sleeping. But any travel later Sunday evening will be difficult because, again, we'll have the snow with sleet on top of it, and then rain. It is going to be a really heavy, wet snow, and the sleet on top of it is going to compress it. It will be very difficult to shovel because we're talking about some significant snow before we see the flip over. We'll talk a little bit more about how much our models are showing us coming up in just a minute, but we also want to talk about that heavy, wet snow as it relates to power outage concerns, because we saw it earlier this season with that heavier wet snow earlier in January. It sticks to the trees, it sticks to the power lines. That weighs it down, already increasing the risk for power outages. But on top of that, this storm is going to pack a windy punch, significant wind expected with this storm really starting to pick up tomorrow. We see a couple little systems roll through before this storm. So you'll notice the wind tomorrow, breezy on Saturday, but Sunday into Monday, that's when we have the potential for winds gusting 40 to 45 miles per hour. Some models hinting at winds gusting up to 55 miles per hour. So let's talk about what a wiggle in either direction could mean for this storm, because again, still days away, the track may change. Today, we didn't see any significant shifts, maybe a little bit of a wobble west in some of our American modeling, but otherwise pretty consistent with a center track over DC. But if we see the center of the storm push a little bit farther out to sea, so sliding to the east, that would mean a bigger snow event for DC and really all of the surrounding areas, less mixing with sleet and rain. However, if we see a wobble to the west, pulling the center of the storm to the west of DC, that would mean more snow for areas through West Virginia and Pennsylvania, but more of a sleet and rain mix for DC. DC could end up with quite a bit of rain, some heavy rain and much less snow. So that's what we're watching as we head through the next several days, where the storm sets up and the exact track that it takes as it moves up the East Coast. Here's a look at our American and our European models in terms of how much snow we can expect. And as I mentioned earlier, they're in pretty good agreement. Both models for over DC having about 3 to 6 inches of snow, but keep in mind, the sleet will compress it. It might not seem like that much snow, and the rain will wash a lot of away. But notice for areas really to the east of DC, both models have very little, if any, snow accumulation. It might accumulate at the start, but it will wash away pretty quickly if we do see that quick flip over to sleet and rain. But notice areas to the west, that shading of purple, that's indicating the potential for a foot of snow. But keep in mind, these models are also accounting for every snowflake that falls to accumulate. It's also accounting for sleet. So I think these numbers are a little high, but I don't think 6 to 12 inches of snow is out of the question for far western Maryland and western Virginia, especially closer to the mountains. So some big snowfall potential where we don't see the mix with sleet and rain. That's going to make a big difference in how much snow we see accumulate when all is said and done. So let's talk a little bit about the wind, because again, that's a big factor of this storm as well. A lot of eyes are focused on whether we see snow or sleet or rain, but the wind will be a big concern no matter what type of precipitation you get. So here we are Sunday morning. It's a little bit breezy, but nothing compared to what's heading our way later Sunday night. This is 7 p.m. Winds coming in from the northeast. This is a nor'easter, gusting between about 20 and 30 miles per hour. The strongest wind looks to be later Sunday night and overnight into Monday morning. That's when we could see winds gusting 40 to 45 miles per hour. Locally stronger gusts not out of the question. Again, it really depends on the track that this storm takes, but the wind will stick around throughout the day on Monday as this storm continues to pull away. So let's talk about the takeaway, what the key points are right now. The current track does bring that icy mix of snow, sleet, and rain. It is just going to be incredibly messy if you have to be out on the roads late Sunday night. Thankfully, Monday is a holiday. Hopefully that will keep a lot of folks off the road Sunday into Monday, because it does look like really difficult travel. The heavy wet snow and ice, the sleet, and potentially some freezing rain will make for just a sloppy mess, and the gusty wind has us concerned with power outages as we head through Sunday and into Monday. But again, you'll notice the wind here over the next several days. We are in for a breezy couple of days ahead of this storm and a cold couple of days. Tomorrow, we're still in the 40s, not too bad, but Saturday, high temperatures are only in the 20s, and it's that cold air that will really set us up for the storm on Sunday. So I'm going to take a minute, look at some of your questions, hopefully answer any that you may have. Colleen said, no, I just got my power back. I was out for a week. So many folks had power issues from our earlier winter storms this season that hopefully everyone is restored. But I said it throughout the evening on the newscast. You do want to prepare for this storm, because I do think widespread power outages will be a concern no matter what type of precipitation you get. I think the risk is really there for everyone. Let's see what else we get. Jared said, I don't know why she's saying wet snow. Temps Sunday morning are going to be in the teens. It is going to be really cold at the onset, but with the track a little bit farther to the west now, we pull in some warmer air. That will make that transition from snow to sleet. So that's when you introduce that heavy wet snow. But as I mentioned, temperatures will be so cold at the onset that everything accumulates. We're not going to see that melting at the onset of the snow because it will be cold enough. It's just once we start to introduce that warmer air and see the transition to sleet and rain that it's going to get heavy and wet. Let's see. A lot of folks preparing. Love to hear that. How much for the DC area? Right now, I agree with our modeling. I think a general 3 to 6 inches, especially for areas in northwest and southwest DC, have a chance for some higher snowfall totals. I think the farther south and east you go, the less snow that we're talking about. But this is going to be a really tough one when it comes to measuring the snow, because it's going to fall and then it's going to compress pretty quickly once you bring in that sleet and rain. So unless you were out there as the storm is happening with your ruler, it's going to be hard to get a pretty accurate measurement of how much snow we'll see. Let's see. A lot of people concerned about driving, understandably so. Stay off of I-95. The good news is VDOT was out today already brining the roads, and they're doing it so early because it's going to be so cold ahead of the storm. Pre-treatment like that is actually much more effective when you can lay it down when temperatures are above freezing. With temperatures in the 20s on Saturday, a lot of that pre-treatment can actually freeze while it's being laid down. So they were out and about getting ahead of the storm today. Let's see what else we got. And you guys can keep posting your questions. I'll go back and answer as many of them as I can. A lot of questions about specifically how much snow where you live. So we will keep an eye on those snowfall totals. We're going to post a map tomorrow. We're going to wait for overnight guidance to come in to get a better idea of how much snow we can expect. But you can head on over to my Facebook page, and I did post what some of our models are predicting. It's not our specific forecast, but it is pretty close. I'll keep coming back and looking at some of your questions throughout the evening and answer as many of them as you can. We'll have brand new model data coming in for the news at 11 o'clock. We'll see you